Project Reimagine. We're reimagining what an office could look like for a Christian organization. Why does the Alliance exist in the first place? Well, we want to bring all of Jesus to all the world. All of our Christ, the saving, sanctifying, healing, returning Christ. You know that we have been part of a gospel advancing movement from our very beginning days. And you know about our missionary sending efforts from our earliest days. And you know that we have now 6.3 million believers in 180 languages, over 22,000 churches that are the fruit of these endeavors over the last 130 years. But there's still 4,000 people groups that have no opportunity to hear the gospel. That burdens us, that propels us, that not everyone has equal access. And so why does the Alliance exist? Because as long as there's somebody who doesn't have access to the gospel, we have a mission to be part of, both in the United States and across the globe. And to carry out that mission, we've always had an office. Started half block from Times Square in New York City. And then we had our short era there in Nyack when they decided to move to the beautiful city of Colorado Springs. And we have a wonderful office building that functionally has served well. Tim and I and the rest of the team could have easily finished our tenure happily living in Colorado Springs, carrying out our work from there as effectively as it's been done from anywhere else. Then why in the world would we be so disruptive as to tell 100 staff that we're going to disrupt their lives and do something different? Well, let me give 4 reasons for our relocation. Various ways we could summarize this, but one of them is missional engagement. It grieves me, it burdens me that every Christian organization I know and every denomination that I know offices in the same way, guaranteeing that our staff will never have to encounter a non-believer 40 hours a week. Day after day, we operate behind secured doors that no non-Christian would have any reason to ever come into unless they're fixing our furnace or air conditioning unit. And then they're, escorted out when they're done. We have fortressed ourselves, and I believe, like Jesus overturning tables in the temple, that we're keeping people from having access to worship. By our very style of officing, we have distanced the gospel from the public. And so that I want the people that are overseeing the mission being on mission as we come to work. I want the organization that's responsible for the mission carrying out mission as we go about our day-to-day lives. So missional engagement. In the very same room where we just got out of our meeting 10 minutes ago, so we're crossing in the hallway. We have coffee all over our building. Why don't we bring it to a coffee shop where we get to do that with the public? We have various functions that by going about our day-to-day life, we could do that in the ebb and flow of a community if a building was built with that in mind. One reason for relocating is missional engagement. A second is staff diversity. You well know that 45% or so of the CMA would be of Asian, Hispanic, and a small amount of African American community among us. And joyfully, we are increasingly of diverse population, but sadly, the office in Colorado Springs does not reflect that, nor do I argue will reflect that for decades by virtue of what kind of city Colorado Springs is and where it's located. So if we're going to build a different kind of office, could we go to a city that has greater staff, greater diversity of population, and that our staff could be hired with a greater diversity among us? A third reason for relocating, and a third goal in mind, would be to have greater accessibility to more of the Alliance family. And yeah, we've got a lot on the West Coast, and we have quite a few down in Florida, a few scattered throughout the South and the West, but the bulk of the Alliance population resides between Minnesota and New York and on the northern half of the United States. And so why not get closer to family? And so could we drive more places? Could we fly more places and just be close to the family, not just for us as a staff getting out to our churches, but for our churches and leaders getting to the office? A far greater connectivity with more ownership and engagement will arise when we're just in better proximity to the Alliance family. And then lastly, better fiscal account responsibility. That we have an $8 million asset in Colorado Springs that doesn't generate much income. And we'd like to see that change. We'd like to see less of the GCF dollar go to heat, light, repair. That could be self-sustaining if the building was built appropriately with mixed use, other tenants, that kind of thing. And so saving GCF dollars, getting closer to the Alliance family, having a more diversified staff who work in an environment where that increases the evangelistic temperature of our staff just by virtue of coming to work. Those are some of the goals. Those are some of the reasons for relocating. So we took 4 trips, visit 90 different properties. But after all that, you know that we landed in Reynoldsburg. This is an incredible location as far as proximity. So it's just off of I-70. It's just off the 270 loop to get around Columbus itself. And so we've got great drivability location. We also have a great airport location because it's 15 minutes from the John Glenn Airport, which I already love. And bonus, 15 minutes from the Rickenbacker Airport. And as you know, I can drive to one district office in 9 hours from Colorado Springs, but we could get to half of our district offices at least, and hundreds and hundreds of our churches in a drive time. So those little dots are Alliance churches. So you know how centrally this is located. And the property itself that we're seeking to acquire is actually 5 different parcels. One is a temporary office building. God's kindness, contiguous to the property we were going to buy, was this office building that will be renovated this summer, and we'll be looking down on our property. Property number 2 is the 9.5 acres, almost 10 acres, that encompasses a Kmart and a McDonald's. This is at their prime intersection. Main Street and Bryce Road is their gateway to the city. So we are under contract for properties 1 and 2. And this is a $4 million phase, this phase 2, to buy and remodel the temporary office, to buy and demolish the Kmart. Property number 3, you could pray with us, please. This is owned by owner. He owns a fast food chain, and he wants to build one of his drive-throughs on property number 3, that prime corner. That would be a sad waste of that corner if we got locked out of the main intersection just because there was a fast food drive-through there. Property number 4 is significant as well, and that would give us, I think, 3 more acres, maybe 4. We're just waiting our time on the strip mall. And then property 5 is a bank. If we ever got that, that would be bonus, but we could do all kinds of things without that little parcel. This whole section that you're seeing is some 15 acres. And on this corner of Bryce and our new street would likely be the new building that we, for the first phase of what we want to do, with the first floor as retail, second floor as offices, third floor leased out offices to other tenants and conference rooms. And then ideally, maybe the Lord would allow us to build an event center and even a hotel to go with that event center, because then we could have a full service for up to 400 people housing for maybe up to 100 rooms. So that would be huge if we could do that. What I just said there is phase 3. The building of those buildings would be phase 3. Phase 4, if we could ever get this strip mall, we've got some housing dreams of what could go in back there for apartment, townhouse kind of, and so you have this walkable kind of mixed use space. So you can go from shopping to office to job to housing without even getting into your car. It's pretty amazing property. Phase 1 was the development, the site visits.
Mm-hmm.
Phase 2, 4 million. And Tim, share some news.
Currently at 5.6 million raised. So we are into phase 3, and we have not yet released the proceeds from the sale of our building here, which we'll have access to in the next couple months. So we're well into phase 3, actually.
I always need to be reminded to be very clear about this. No GCF dollars are being used for this project. We are not taking out of the Great Commission Fund for the relocation of staff, for the purchase of property, for the demolition of the building, for the building of the new buildings. This is aside from the GCF. And in God's kindness, he brought in this second surge of funds right before it's time to sign the checks for the Kmart, for the temporary office, for the remodeling. So we can pay all that in cash, which is just so encouraging to me. Because when I had the conversation with the men 2 years ago, we had $0 for this. We started with nothing. And so this has been from 0 to 5.6 million in this last year has been truly remarkable. Yes, we're in phase 3 and don't really have a number yet because it happened so quickly. We haven't met with the architects to have a sense. It'll be at least 20 million. I know that for sure. But how much it is beyond that, we'll just have to see how large we're willing to extend that next phase, that phase 3, and how much we push off into phase 4. 2 people I contacted about this were Gary Benedict and Peter Nanfeld, our former presidents. And here's what Peter had to say. As a movement, the CMA has always endeavored to ensure that our vision and mission statements are more than innocuous documents tacked to the walls of our church offices. Moving the national office to a location which affords more intensive interaction with the community, reflecting the multicultural nature of our 21st century, is another example of taking our mission and vision statements off the printed page and putting them into vigorous action. So I've been so encouraged by the buy-in of our highly respected previous leaders. It's all for the purpose of taking all of Jesus for all the world. And so we really are grateful that you let us share this moment in this presentation.